Trucker Dump, episode 178. Well, we're doing something different for today's show. For those of you who are a part of the Trucker Dump Facebook and Slack groups, I announced that I had a trainee this week and I would not be doing a podcast, but longtime listener Steven Gorman stepped up and asked if he could fill in, and I thought, never thought of that before. What the heck? Let's give him a shot. So that's what this is all about. So today, this is Steven's show. I trust you'll stick around and listen. And unless they throw another surprise trainee on me, I will be back next week. So I'll just let Steven take it from here on out.
Welcome to Trucker Dump, where you'll get one driver's insights and sometimes humorous views of truck driving and the trucking industry, and pretty much anything else he feels like dumping on you. This podcast is brought to you by AboutTruckDriving.com. Resources that help you understand the world of truck driving through the use of stories and a pathetic attempt at humor.
Hello, my name is Steven. I like to make things. This is usually how I greet people over on my TikTok channel. If you're a new listener, welcome to the Trucker Dump universe. This is my first time guest hosting. Hopefully my face for radio does not scare you away. Welcome back, fellow Trucker Dumpers. Our fearless leader is advancing the truck driving industry one student at a time. Todd McCann is risking his own life to single-handedly solve the trucker shortage problem. Where do I come in? Someone who shall remain unnamed forgot to lock the recording studio window. Ha! I'm just kidding. I would rather face a pit bull in lipstick than have to face down an angry evil overlord. I volunteered to try to guest host this podcast. The Evil Overlord, is that a nickname or is that a painful, accurate description? I can see how most people get confused because Todd McCann always says it in a loving manner. Garage door. Before I give evidence on my theory of nickname or not, I would like to thank Porter Freight Funding for sponsoring this episode. Todd McCann is the writer of two incredible books, the first one being How to Find a Great Truck Driving Job. If you're new into trucking or looking to find a new trucking job, this book is a great resource. I would highly recommend picking it up today. This book reminds me of the unknown theory. During a news briefing back in 2002, Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld coined the phrase the unknown theory. It explains the limitation of intelligence reports. There are the known knowns. There are things that we know we know. We also know that there's known unknowns. That is to say, we know that there are some things that we do not know. But there's also the unknown unknowns. Those are the ones we don't know that we don't know. And that's why this book is a great tool. If you don't know what to ask for or what to expect, trucking becomes the unknown unknown. This book gives you something to think about. In a way that's easy to compare jobs that might look similar on the surface, but are totally different. Like how vacation time is. Do they have a rider program? Can you bring your pet along? This book has a lot more questions to ask. Things to compare. I was just scratching the surface of this book. Let's get back to the garage door. The Evil Overlord, nickname or description in the book. Trucking life. In the book, the garage door story is a very, very funny, painful story. Trucking Life is an audiobook which is narrated by the author. It's about 9 hours long. There are many more stories in this book that prove my theory. If you would like to discuss these theories with me, you could join our Slack group. To join this Slack group, all you have to do is email Todd McCann at truckerdump@gmail.com to join. When you join, you'll even get a shout out on the podcast. Both books can be found over at AboutTruckDriving.com. You can save about 25% if you buy them as a bundle. I'm all about the deals and saving money when I can. I believe all great entertainers have something or someone that causes them pain. Where would Taylor Swift be without her ex-boyfriend? That's why the Evil Overlord is such a key part of this podcast. Once you get Trucker Life, the audiobook, you too can laugh at Todd McCann's pain. But seriously, the audiobook, it really is good and it is worth to listen to. Todd McCann is not paying me for my opinion. I'm a big fan. I keep full editorial control over all my opinions. Myself and Todd McCann, we're the opposite side of the same coin. The only thing we really have in common is we both drive trucks. He's a nighttime driver, I'm a daytime driver. Todd McCann is a professional, and I am a certified goofball who is barely employed. My boss has a weird way of reminding what day it is. For example, he'll say, "This is the third time you're late this week. Do you know what that means?" It is such a T-ball question because I know what day it is. It's Wednesday. So I would like to tell you a little bit about myself. I got out of the Navy back in 2006 and started driving truck mainly because I saw an ad in the paper that said no experience required. Back in 2006, truck driving was a lot different than it is today, and I was like, yeah, I'm qualified for that job. I've been truck driving now for almost 17 years. Todd McCann is busy with a new student, and I volunteered to try to host this podcast. I was even more excited when I realized that this would be a Halloween episode. Halloween, it is my favorite holiday. If you were part of our Slack group, you would know that I like to dress up. To join the conversation and be part of our Slack group, email Todd McCann at truckerdump@gmail.com. I found this excellent article about the top candies that are sold by state. I'm not going to read the whole list, but I'm going to list a few of them. The top 3 candies that sell in Pennsylvania are Hershey's Minis. Oh, that one doesn't surprise me. I mean, we have Hershey, Pennsylvania. M&M's, which I drive past that plant quite often. And lastly, Skittles. In the home state of Todd McCann, Missouri, they have Milky Way, Almond Joys, and lastly, hot tamales. And I'm pretty sure Todd McCann is one buying all the hot tamales in Missouri. California is Reese's Cups, M&M's, and Skittles. I'm not sure if you can bribe a DOT officer with candy. California has always been the least trucker-friendly state. Do you really need a weigh station every 5 miles? All my exes are from Texas. That's not only a song, but it is my true life. They have Starburst, Reese's Cups, and Sour Patch Kids. That last one makes sense because all my exes are from Texas. They grow them sour there. And lastly, we'll do New Jersey. I spend a lot of time in New Jersey. They have Tootsie Pops, M&M's, and Skittles. As always, links in the show notes. When Todd McCann asked me what would I do a podcast on, I had to think about that for a little bit. I was like, I got just the story. Recently, I competed in my first trucking rodeo. Why, after 17 years, would you compete in your first trucking rodeo this week? That is a good question. My boss found my only weakness. Free food. They were cooking made-to-order steaks over on the grill. And the only way to get it was to compete in the competition. I tried everything to get out of actually doing it. Like, can I just sit in the driver's seat and then get out and get my steak? But alas, I had to run the course. I am lucky enough to work with Ron. He is a 2017 National Trucking Rodeo Champion, aka The Pickle. The Pickle is a very humble man. I like to joke around and call him the GOAT, and he's very modest. He's always like, no, I know who the GOAT is. He works over at FedEx. He is a 2-time national champion. I'm lucky enough to be able to pick his brain. The reason why these local events matter so much is because it affects how many drivers a company can send to compete on the national level. The National Trucking Rodeo has 3 parts. The first part is a written test. Don't worry, the American Trucking Association sells a guide, book to help you study. The next part is a hands-on pre-trip inspection. It's not your standard walk around and kick all the tires kind of inspection. It's a very hands-on, detailed kind of inspection, kind of like you're DOTing yourself. Hopefully everyone here does a decent, safe pre-trip. And finally, the fun part, the obstacle course. The obstacle course, it didn't take long to do. It was pretty simple. You start off with a straight line back. Then you do an offset back to a pretend dock where you have to get about 18 inches from the dock. Next, you have to pull forward and try to stop with your DOT bumper past the line. Next, you have to make a really sharp right-hand turn and try keeping your trailer tires as close to the barrel as possible. Next, you pull straight forward and try to line up your trailer with some cones on the ground. And finally, the last thing you have to do is stop your passenger tire on a fake scale. The whole obstacle course took less than 5 minutes. I told Will, the man on the grill, that I would shout him out on the podcast because he made an excellent steak. So what were my results? Believe it or not, I scored a perfect score, which is 300. Kind of reminds me of bowling. For the listeners who actually want proof, my real score was 80 out of 300. At the end of the day, my reward was the free food. Okay, maybe it wasn't that free because, I had to drive for it. If you're interested in trucking rodeos, there will be links in the show notes. I would like to thank Porter Freight Funding for sponsoring this episode. They have a new number, 205-576-8257. Like Todd McCann, I am a company driver. I drive mainly in the Northeast. I wouldn't want to have to deal with traffic and have to collect payments too. Sometimes it's worth having other people do the less desirable jobs. Even if it's just for that one customer who promises you the check is really in the mail this time. Like Todd McCann said, they have a new number, 205-576-8257. E-logs, everyone's favorite ankle monitor. I run a Sunday through Friday schedule. On Sunday, everything was fine until I decided to check my ending miles for the day. It was showing 0 on my logbook. My first thought was, I'm definitely going to jail if I go through a weigh station. I'm pretty sure DOT doesn't look at logbooks that definitely look like they've been faked. The weirdest thing is, it glitched in my truck. Somehow, I had starting miles of 179,000. I went back in to talk to my boss and he gave me my starting miles. And then I went back out to my truck to see, where it was at. It said 3,000 on the dash. Apparently e-logs can't go backwards. The problem is now fixed. As long as I can avoid weigh stations until Tuesday, I should be fine. Most DOT officers don't go back more than 8 days. If they ask for 2 weeks, I might be in trouble. The community over at our Slack group really helped out. I would highly recommend that you join our community. To join our community, email Todd McCann at truckerdump@gmail.com. We do have a Trucker Grub segment. The Trucker Grub segment was sent in by Steven. I'm just kidding, it's me. I wanted this first episode to be amazing, so I went out of my way to buy myself lunch. And by buy myself lunch, I mean I will be submitting a receipt to get reimbursed by Todd McCann. The restaurant I went to is called the Wayback Burgers, which is located over in Lock Haven, PA. It's right next to a huge distribution center called First Quality, where I picked up a load. To find this place, it's about 6 miles off the interstate, but off of I-80, take exit 178 to Pennsylvania 220 north, about 6 miles, to exit 111. Immediately, the first exit will be Walnut Street. It's located in the Sunoco truck stop, which has about 20 to 30 parking spots. I will add the GPS locations to the show notes. The prices seem similar to a Five Guys. It's about $7 for a basic burger, but all the toppings are free. I went with the classic burger, except for I added extra tomatoes. I went with onion rings with cheese sauce. And for drinks, I went with the special lemonade, and I got the s'mores milkshake. Well, for the podcast. The total price for the meal was $22.07. The environment was really nice. It felt like a diner. They had a bar we could sit at with stools so you could watch them cook. They had a couple of booths. The whole, atmosphere was really nice. I enjoyed being in there. Because I am a truck driver, I'm not earning unless them wheels are turning. I had to ditch the lovely decor to eat my lovely meal in my truck going 65. The onion rings by themselves were super filling. Let's just say that the cheese sauce did not disappoint. I had to wait a while before starting the burger. The burger was really good. I got mine pretty much standard, but I added extra tomatoes, and I added some mushrooms. Overall, I was very happy with the meal. I didn't think the price broke the bank. If this burger place wasn't 2 hours from my house, I would take my daughter Aubrey, who has recently taken to eating at fancy restaurants. I would definitely stop in and eat lunch again. It's about 6 miles from the interstate, so it's not too far out of the way. And like I said earlier, it's right next to First Quality, where I picked up a load for work. It's kind of near State College. I'm used to driving in heavy New Jersey/New York City traffic. It was nice to drive the open roads for once. Uncongested roads. The sacrifices that I make for this podcast, the delicious, delicious sacrifices. If you find yourself in the middle of Pennsylvania on I-80, I would definitely check out this restaurant. I will be reviewing my pillow next after eating such a huge meal. And now for some news. This isn't trucking news, but on October 27th, 2022, Elon Musk bought Twitter. I'm wondering how Todd McCann feels about that. Our first story comes from thetrucker.com. Truck driver shortage remain at a near high record. The ATA 2002 projection is the second highest level on record after the 81,258 in 2021. The ATA contends that there are no single cause of the driver shortage, but some of the primary factors include the high average age of current drivers, which leads to a high number of retirements. Women make up just 8% of all drivers, well below their representation in the workforce at about 47%, not being able to pass a drug test. The lifestyle disadvantage, especially in long-haul market, with greater time away from home. In my personal experience, being a local driver, I don't have much of a lifestyle either. Working 14 hours a day and then being home just for 10 hours every day, it's not as great as just being in your truck. The walk to the restroom is a lot shorter when I'm at home than when I'm sleeping in the truck. I would love to flip my work schedule, where I work for 10 and home for 14. When I was over the road, I used to think that pay would solve this driver shortage, but now I think it's better to have a better work-life balance. I no longer sleep in my truck, but when my boss does offer bonuses to work a 6th day, I usually sign up for it, so take that with a grain of salt. Our second story is from the Trucker.com. Todd McCann has been keeping us updated with what's going on with the rail union. As of October 27, 2002, businesses across the U.S. are increasingly worried about the renewed threats of a railroad strike after 2 unions reject their deals, and they want the Biden administration and Congress to be ready to intervene. A coalition of 322 businesses group from a variety of industries signed off on a letter to President Joe Biden on Thursday, October 27, urging him to make sure the deal he has helped broker last month gets approved, because a railroad strike would have dire consequences for the economy. All 12 rail unions must approve their agreement to prevent a strike next month. A strike isn't immediate because the 2 unions that voted down their deals agreed to renegotiate before considering a walkout, but the railroads face a November 19th deadline with one of those unions. 6 smaller unions have approved their deal, while 4 others are set to vote over the next month, including the 2 biggest ones, engineering and conductors. Those 2 unions have the most quality of life concerns. The CVSA has released the dates for the biggest trucking blitz of 2023. The Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance, CVSA, is looking ahead to international road checks and the several other major checks, inspections, and enforcement efforts scheduled for 2023. Each year, the CVSA holds numerous events through the U.S., Canada, and Mexico, intended to improve the highway safety by cracking down on vehicles and drivers in violation. Here are the dates you need to know. Human Traffic Awareness Initiative, January 9th to the 13th in the U.S., and February 20th to the 24th in Canada. International Road Checks is scheduled for May 16th through 18th, 2023. Operation Safe Drive Week is scheduled for July 9th through the 15th of 2023. Brake Safety Week is scheduled for August 20th through August 26th. And lastly is the unannounced one-day Brake Safety Enforcement Initiative. This can be held at any time during the year, also involves inspections, checks, brakes, to identify brake violations. The previous surprise Brake Safety Day took place on April 27th of 2022. Hopefully everyone here is a safe driver and don't have to worry about those dates. The next article is from CDL Life as well. Avoid the I-40 at the Tennessee-North Carolina state line for the next few years, official warn. A stretch of Interstate 40 at the Tennessee-North Carolina state line will be a mess until 2024, state officials say. If you're driving in a car, you can avoid these with what will add a 45-minute drive, but the North Carolina DOT urges truckers to avoid these detours and stay on I-40 to travel west to Tennessee because there are no safe truck routes through the mountain pass of Asheville. Well, in the news segment, on a good note, it is from truckernews.com. The trucking association's offering free lunches at 3 Iowa Scale House locations November 2nd. A state trucking organization is feeding truckers next week. The Iowa Motor Trucking Association is handing out free lunch boxes to truckers at 3 scales locations Wednesday, November 2nd, beginning at 11 a.m. Locations are Dallas County Scale, I-80 eastbound, mile marker 115. The Brandon Scale, I-380 southbound marker 53. The Salic Scale, I-29 southbound marker 132. As in years past, no enforcement activities, said the association on Facebook post. You literally just drive on through and let us thank you with a free meal and a handshake. Meals will be distributed while supplies last. If you're going to be passing any of these Iowa scales on November 2nd, make sure you stop by and get a free lunch. If you do pick up one of these free lunches, email Todd McCann at truckerdump@gmail.com because I'm pretty sure he's going to want to know what's in that lunchbox. There is no feedback for this show, but please email Todd McCann at truckerdump@gmail.com. Let him know how I did. Good? Bad? Or you didn't notice he wasn't even here. I'm sure he wants to hear all about it. I've really enjoyed my time hosting this podcast. Would you like to hear another podcast which I co-hosted with Todd McCann? Check out Trucker Dump episode 111, Improving Our Reputation as Truck Drivers. As always, links in the show notes. When I recorded the episode with Todd McCann, I didn't think I would benefit from that episode. One of the unforeseen benefits of co-hosting that episode with Todd McCann is now I'm able to cite myself as an expert. Or at least I did on my last college paper. Yep, you heard that right. I'm a Rhodes Scholar. This episode fell short of my 30-minute goal. I would like to thank Todd McCann for giving me this opportunity to host this podcast. I would like to thank people over in our Slack community for their support. I would like to thank Porter Freight Funding for sponsoring this podcast. I would like to thank Ron, aka The Pickle, for sharing his insight on National Trucking Championships. And lastly, I would like to thank you, the listener. Thank you for listening to this podcast. Todd McCann likes to end all of his episodes the same way. And I think I'm going to do the same, just to pay homage. Stay out of my way.